Welcome everyone to the August Committee of the Whole meeting for Community High School District 94 Board of Education. Mission statement, please.
Community High School will ignite a passion for learning, foster leadership and responsibility, and empower all learners to live their personal best.
Board agreements, please.
Closed session meetings. Board members respect the confidentiality of privileged information and will not divulge conversations, discussions, or deliberations that take place during closed session meeting. Board members understand that to divulge closed session information not only damages the relationship of the team, but has the potential for far-reaching consequences which may impact future district operations.
Thank you. Lynn, roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Ms. Casey Mayer?
Here.
Mr. Nagel?
Present.
Ms. Doremus?
Present.
Ms. Munoz?
Here.
Ms. Chavez?
Here.
Ms. Murphy?
Present.
All right, that brings us to public participation. This is the portion of our meeting where any member of the public may address the Board of Education on any topic. We welcome your comments and will carefully listen to your concerns. We will not be able to engage in a dialogue during public participation, but when appropriate, we will direct the administration to follow up. Presentations are limited to no more than 5 minutes per person, with a total time limit of 30 minutes for public participation. If you wish to make personal charges or complaints against individual employees, volunteers, or students of the district, we request that you send the board your concerns in writing rather than stating those concerns during public comment. If anyone currently present wishes to make public comment and has not already done so, please fill out one of the comment forms in the back of the room and hand it to someone seated at the table. At this point, we've received no comment forms and we've received no electronic comment. So moving into reports and information, Executive Director of Professional Learning Report.
Good evening. I have a few different topics for you. I'm going to begin with my teaching and learning report. So first of all, each August, as you know, we welcome new and returning staff, provide professional learning opportunities, and present updates to practices and procedures. So today actually was the first of our new faculty orientation meetings. We welcome the 26-27 staff of new faculty. There are 15 new Wildcats. When they began today, it was the first of 3 formal days that we have during August, and we do have what we call a flex day either in June or July when they are in for 1 day of orientation. The agenda today included 2 sessions on professional learning communities, including one that was titled, "What Kind of School Do We Want to Be?" New faculty also met and worked with their mentors who will be supporting them individually throughout the year. Additional highlights for the week include presentations regarding serving multilingual learners, as well as students with IEPs and 504s. They'll also have lunch at Cantini, which is sponsored by the West Chicago Rotary Club. And they will also have a narrated bus tour to introduce all of them to the community. It really is one of the highlights. Next week, all staff return for 2 Institute days designed to prepare them for professional learning teams, and we'll be addressing question 2, which is how do we know that they learned it? Professional development will also include discussion of assessment best practices, as well as the use of a data protocol, which can be facilitated through Mastery Manager. It's a program that will allow teachers to disaggregate data. Sessions regarding grading practices and the expansion of access to academic support during DEN time will also be communicated. And if I may, just to address a question that Mr. Nagel had regarding the grading piece, which is why I did give you an updated version. On the second column there, one of the components of it is really attempting to reach out to parents to ask them to have conversations with their students about grading itself. And so in 3 of those bullet points, one of the things that had been stated previously was using the word assignment, referring to both something that would be homework or classwork, as well as the idea of assessment. So what I did is rework those bullet points there to communicate the idea that students are either working on something that would be practice, which would mean while it's during learning, and then that would be part of the 20% category for grading, or when we get to the summative assessments at the end of a learning progression or a unit, and that's formally what we consider an assessment, students are able to retake those, and that becomes part of the 80% grade for that. I also did try to really emphasize the idea that although the practice component is only 20%, that we need the kids to do the practice to be able to do well in the assessments, and also B, that it may look like only 20%, but it has the ability to have an impact of a letter grade or more. So really kind of trying to emphasize that. So this will be shared not only on our website, but it will be communicated with teachers, with students, and just something that we've been living by for a number of years since we've been doing the grading for equity work. In addition to that, I also wanted to share with you another change that we're making for this year, which will be the addition of formal practice pre-ACT testing. So the strategic plan identifies student growth and achievement as a primary focus of the district's ongoing school improvement efforts, as we all know. Strategy 1 itself requires the district to make efforts to equip students, staff, and families with programs, procedures, and practices to close academic achievement gaps. So one metric to evaluate progress toward achieving Goal 1, which is increasing the percentage of students who are meeting or exceeding standards in reading and in math, requires access to grade level standards, quality assessments, a rigorous curriculum, and the use of data, which is what we're working on with the professional learning communities. However, June 2020 issue brief from ACT lists 5 different benefits of pre-ACT testing, so the testing component itself. So first of all, by accurately predicting ACT scores, those scores can facilitate early college planning and resources for students. Second of all, pre-ACT ensures equitable access to practice for the ACT so that all of our students can have that experience without having a fee. Schools that adopt the pre-ACT see improved student readiness for college and careers. And then also pre-ACT scores help us to identify students who are ready to succeed in more advanced high school coursework that might not otherwise be identified. And then finally, pre-ACT scores provide a baseline for measuring growth to determine the impact of those improvement efforts. So this year, District 94 is proposing the administration of the pre-ACT 8-9 to our 9th graders and the pre-ACT to our 11th graders during the fall of 2026 to provide that equitable access to practice for the ACT and perhaps even more importantly, enable faculty and administration to disaggregate data so that we'd be able to look at subgroups as well as individual students who have needs in particular areas that align to the ACT College Readiness Standards. So the cost to administer these tests for the pre-ACT 8, 9, and 11 are $18 per student. And currently, as of the writing of the memo, we had 491 freshmen, I believe it may be 505 now, and 439 juniors who are enrolled. So what we're asking is for your future approval, as well as any feedback you may have regarding this change that we would make to administer this test in October. Anyone have any questions on any of those 3 pieces?
And this is mandatory for all of the students?
For all 9th and 11th graders, yes.
And would they have an option to opt out of it?
Parents can always opt out in this kind of setting where it'll be something that we're putting in place for ourselves. So yes, they may.
Couple questions. This is, I think, the 2nd year that we're doing the PLCs. Is that correct?
It is.
How are we evaluating? You made a comment about one of the topics coming up for the staff is how do we know they're learning or what they're
Yes.
learning? How are we evaluating the PLCs?
I think one of the main ways that we're doing that is through work as an administrative team with the consultant that we have, Jack Balderman, who came on with us last year. And really, he and his staff are walking us through and kind of reflecting on all of the materials. He's in the building consistently, meeting with teams, with us as well. He was in, actually he spoke with Lee Maurice and Megan and me this week, met with our leadership team in person last week. He also has other staff that have particular specialties that we're consistently working with as well. So their expertise in that area has definitely been a piece of it. I think ultimately, when we're able to have a little bit more time, I mean, our hope is that we're going to be able to demonstrate it through student learning. So having it only in place for a year and even less than that by the time the students were testing, making some kind of move on the ACT is difficult. And we also know that'll be a challenge for us in general because we do have so many students who are English learners, and the timing component of the test alone, as well as the text complexity, are very, very difficult. But I do think we'll have both that kind of measure as well as the anecdotal snapshot and conversations that we're having with him, as well as with faculty who are making up those teams or individual kinds of feedback.
We chose to take a very deliberate and methodical approach to PLC implementation. A lot of districts will just roll it out year one, roll out all 4 questions, say, hey, here you go. So we chose to chunk it, and I think it was the right decision. It takes a little bit longer to do, but if we want to implement it with fidelity and ensure that our teachers fully understand what the concepts are of the PLC, then it's the smart thing to do to take question 1 year 1, question 2 year 2, and then 3 and 4 come in year 3, and then we're in that reteaching mode every year thereafter.
But the assessment and grading practice that you sent out for the parents, that's good. I'm not sure that every parent understands the value and importance of having their students graduate. Are we somewhere along the line explaining to parents, especially some of the new people in the community, why getting their kids through school and to a graduation is important?
For that question, Rich.
Sure. I appreciate that, and I think that's kind of right where we are right now. I do think that with the addition of Nick Kempsky's role as a director of post-secondary success, what we've really been trying to do is articulate to the kids and begin to target the parents as well in terms of looking at the idea of career exploration. We'd like it to begin even younger than high school, but beginning in 9th grade, you were able to fund for us a program called U Science that all of our sophomores take part in. That is actually a commercial product that's not even intended just for high school students, but it's something that measures both aptitude and interest so that students are able to get that kind of feedback as sophomores that they continue through as the juniors and seniors. I think you know that we've really been expanding programming in terms of the offerings that we have in CTE and healthcare, things like the different courses that we've expanded and with the pathway piece. So I do think that we're taking those steps. We do also have the DEN speakers who've been coming in for 2 years now, so we generally have at least 2 of them who come in monthly. However, I wholeheartedly believe that we could really be expanding our efforts to further communicate that to parents. We've definitely had the tradition of having different topics that are presented at open house for parents to be able to sit in on. And in the past, I've done some that were targeting specifically 9th grade families. The dean's office has done them a number of ways. We've done it on Power School. And I think that you're right on that we're due, in the near future to really be targeting that. And I think it's also very consistent with the PACE framework that the state requires for us for each of those different steps by grade level that we're committing to putting in place for students in terms of post-secondary success. So I think we've made great strides, but I do think there's even more that we could and will be doing.
We've talked about the graduation rates and the students that don't get to that point. Have we done anything in terms of surveys or analysis to find out the students that aren't graduating, why they're not graduating? I mean, that kind of a tricky thing, but
I don't
if we knew why, then maybe we could start working when they're in lower grades to resolve that.
I don't think there's a single variable as to why. A lot of it has to do with attendance. There are also some external factors that play with some of our students as to why they don't graduate. But the graduation rate, while it's not where we want it to be, we did see an increase over last year to this past year, which is encouraging. I think some of the programs that we have in place and that are about to start up in 27 will help pique the interest of a lot of our students who might not be interested in like the traditional core courses and more the electives to kind of, we talk about creating a sense of belonging with our students, which impacts attendance, impacts grades, impacts graduation, and it's finding those niche spots within our curriculum to make kids feel more accepted and comfortable in the academic environment. So it's in a non-traditional approach to where we're trying to meet the needs of the students in order to get them caught up and to realize that there is value in education and there's value in that graduation. We can talk about all the statistics about how much more money you make as a graduate versus a non-graduate and all of that, which is great. I don't think kids respond to that because they see it as too far off. So what can we do here and now? What are some of the courses that we can start to push in to our curriculum to help the kids see themselves in that light? So it's an ongoing effort, and it's not just a single factor that we can point to that's going to automatically increase the graduation rate. I think it's a combination of all of the work that's being done right now and then what's going to be done in the future.
It may not be the single factor getting to graduation, but along the way there's probably one or two things like motivation and peer pressure and things like that, that regardless of what your intent of doing with your graduation is, that you want to get to that point and at least graduate for some reason.
Attendance is a good place to start, though, as Kurt said. I think that sometimes gives you a window into understanding the needs and the barriers that students face to come to school and why they feel disengaged. And I think that at the end of the day, the curriculum is really important because it could really make the difference between a student feel engaged and like they belong and seeing themselves in the curriculum. So I do think that these are all really valuable and important steps. My only question is, currently so we don't have a specific presentation on grading for parents currently?
Actually, I did one last year, and then the year prior to that. It's definitely something that could be done annually for freshman parents. So we have been pretty consistent with it over the last, this is our 5th year doing this work. But that would be something that we could do annually as well.
I think that's a great idea, just because I do feel that that's a way for teachers in 9th grade to immediately partner with parents. The parents are the experts, they know what their kids are kind of coming in with, and I think it's a way also to build that like rapport with parents. So I think that would be a great opportunity, and also provide the interpretation needed for, in both languages.
If I can add, I was just meeting with our parent outreach department, and one of the conversations that we were having is we're looking to plan at least 4 events throughout the year where it's almost like a parent university. And so we're working on identifying some of these topics. Obviously, attendance was one that we discussed, but we really want to tailor those topics based on the needs of our families. So we are going to look at like what is our data, and so what are some of those relevant topics. We're going to start off with 4 because this is the first time that we're doing something like this. The idea of it is that we continue to have these, and parents kind of see the school as a place for learning. But attendance was one of the first meetings that we want to have, and our priority for these meetings is in Spanish. So we are being very intentional about targeting our Spanish-speaking community. So once we do have all the dates organized, we'll definitely share them. We're also going to be inviting the 33 families as well to participate, so you'll get that information as soon as we get that plan, but we're working on it.
That sounds wonderful. And I think, I was just going to add, I think it's important to really leverage our collaboration with feeder districts and really understand like the barriers that they're facing in 8th grade. I know that working with middle school students, I feel like they are really prepared when they get here, and they already have a lot of these key elements already down. So we need to make sure and ensure that they continue that in their transition over here. But yeah, great, thanks.
The other partner districts will also be invited, not just 33?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I think a couple of years ago, Mary, I sat in on during a freshman
did.
orientation.
You did.
You were giving a presentation like that.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like nowadays we could set up some online kinds of presentations about grading, about graduation, almost like create a parent university, so people could take it at their leisure, but kind of take it, get kind of credit for it that, you know, somehow affects their kids down the way, so that there's some incentive on that. Seems like everybody wants to log in and do something, you know, for an hour or two at their own pace and have things. I don't know if there's stuff available commercially, or if we would put something together ourselves to kind of promote these important things, so that the parents are getting the message as well as the students.
There's a school, high school in DuPage County that does that. I'll have to see if I.
The Glenbard program.
Yeah, the Glenbard Parent Series, yeah. And we partner with them on that parent series, so we push that out in our monthly communication for parents to
I know
join.
that we have been pushing out the Glenbard one because I've seen. I thought there was someone else where it was like a one-on-one teaching program, but it was online. Look and see, I'll let you know if I find it.
Any other questions at this point?
I think we were going to move into the presentation next. Dr. Poy and I are going to talk a little bit about the updated school accountability model that ISB is putting into place, which will be reflected in October. So first of all, to give you an overview, the federal government Every Student Succeeds Act is part of the accountability system, and it has this series of requirements that you can see up here on the screen that regardless of which state you are in, these are the things that must be included in the state programming in terms of accountability. So as you can see there on the left, one of the requirements is that we're using multiple measures. And then as you can see the list going down there, in terms of academic achievement, in Illinois, they're using the language proficiency. Academic progress for us is growth. Then obviously graduation rate, our multilingual learner progress, and then as well as how are we determining school quality, student success. The accountability also has to be for all students, as well as being able to disaggregate it into student groups, with a focus on being able to identify which are the students who are currently in the greatest need, and then ultimately the information must be public. So what this image does for you is it shows you the comparison between the model that was being used previously for about the last decade to what this new model beginning with this school year looks like. So as you can see on the left, the largest band is the commendable range. And one of the challenges with that is that there were so many schools that were being rated commendable that it really loses meaning. So I believe we would have 10% of schools that were identified as exemplary, and then 5% were rated comprehensive. But other than that, you have this, very, very large number. The other issue as well is that if you look at the difference between like norm referenced and criterion referenced, so in the old model, there was this set percentage that could be exemplary, whereas the difference going forward is that there's going to be very specific criteria that are outlined that any school can then aspire to having those ratings. You can also see that there was the addition of the approaching exemplary band that will be in place there. And then there's the note of the idea that developing towards commendable will have different meaning than the targeted support group previously. So what this demonstrates to you here is that there are two different kinds of categorization that they're putting in place. So in the house there, that top row are the core indicators that have the impact that can either raise or lower a rating. Very much of a focus on strengths and what most of us would consider as some of the must-haves, must measure. In the lower level of the house, they're calling this elevating indicators. So in terms of multilingual learner progress, looking at consistent attendance, which I'll talk about in just a moment, as well as the climate survey, those will be metrics that can improve a rating but will not lower it. So as you can see there, in terms of proficiency, I'm going to double check so I don't talk past myself. Yeah, that'll be on the next slide. So the piece here then again is that, as you'll see for the elevating indicators, the metrics that are aligned to ESSA are in that particular component. And then you'll also see at the top that the core indicators, obviously in terms of student growth, proficiency, those are going to be what's creating the largest component of the ultimate rating, right? They call them the key drivers. On this slide, you can see specifically what the changes and the components that are consistent from the prior model. So in terms of proficiency, there is a change here because what they've done is they've combined the English language arts, math, and science all together, rather than in the past, we would have an English language arts and a math score there. So those are all going to be put together. And you can see that that's replacing, as we just talked about, those separate indicators. So that is a change. In terms of the growth component, you can see there again that in this case, this is a shift from what they were calling the 9th grade on track. And one of the next slides will dig into that in a moment. So a shift here, again, is that they looked at the idea of 9th grade on track as being very similar ultimately to graduation rate, because it does make sense that if students at the end of their freshman year are at a certain pace, that oftentimes that number would mirror what the graduation rate was. So they've made this shift into looking at here, looking at growth in those particular areas. And then as we go across the top to graduation rate, you can see with the little red lines that are there, there isn't a shift there. So this is going to continue with those 3 different composite scores for the 4th, 5th, and 6th year graduation rate. So that will stay the same. So if we go through the first level, so to speak, it talks about the idea of it being redesigned. But really you can see that there isn't a shift because it's just looking at the expectations for elementary versus high school. So that's not going to be any kind of change for us. The consistent attendance has that yellow circle around it because it isn't fully a change. What it really looks like there is they've kind of inverted the concept that they're using. So instead of saying this is the rate of chronic absenteeism, what they're going to look at now is the percent of students who are meeting that 90% benchmark. So we had that same data, it's just framed in a kind of a more positive aspirational way in that piece. And then finally, in terms of the climate survey, again, there will not be a change there for us either. So overall, the metrics perhaps are not as much of the biggest change as it is the idea that schools can determine their own fate in terms of not just a limited 10% of schools can be exemplary. I do think that's one of the
process are willing to expand their product?
A lot of districts are moving away from the 5 essentials because of, I think, their lack of desire to change their product. There's a lot of
happy with
individual.
what they have and aren't willing to expand it.
Yeah.
So as Mary mentioned, 9th grade on track is no longer included in the designation for schools, but it will still be included in the school report card. And for us, this continues to be a valuable early warning indicator, because it does help us identify students who need additional support that we want to intervene to ensure that they're on track for graduation.
Excuse me, back to the 5 essentials. You said the state requires us or recommends 5 essentials. If we move to a different product, we still have to do the 5 essentials to meet that?
Nope. So the state requires a climate survey. The 5 essentials is the one the state has us default to. So if we choose, and we've done some exploration in this already, and we're about halfway down the road here. If we choose to use Panorama, it's not a waiver, it's just a change in the climate survey.
Okay, and they're allowing districts to do that?
Yes,
Okay, so the default is a recommendation, but not a mandate then?
correct.
So this, this slide shows how the indicators vary by, we have different performance levels for each indicator. So each measure has a different cut score. So when we look at proficiency, growth, graduation, English learner, attendance, all of these different indicators, they're all measured differently. And then the dark orange and red ranges, they represent obviously the areas of most significant concern. There are some core indicators that do have an automatic comprehensive threshold. So that for high school is graduation rate. You'll see composite growth and composite proficiency. So those core indicators, if schools fall below that threshold, then they're going to automatically be placed on comprehensive for that particular area. So one of the key things with these different indicators is that as a school, we'll be able to see how we performed on each of the different indicators, but the emphasis is really placed on these core indicators. So the core indicators are set, and then the elevating indicators have the ability to lift up whatever the designation is for the school. And so these are the different, these are the 5 areas, these are the 5 designations. And so they're intended to just summarize the overall performance of the school. Exemplary reflects that there's a strong performance across many indicators. Approaching exemplary also reflects strong performance, but there's still some areas available for growth. Commendable represents mixed performance. There are some clear strengths, but then there's also areas that require some attention. Developing identifies challenges across core and elevating indicators, and comprehensive represents the most significant level of concern and requires school improvement support. The model also examines student group performance. So overall, results can appear positive, while a particular group may be experiencing lower outcomes. So it does look at subgroup performance, and so that is one of the things that is built into this model. Now, with respect to high schools, there are 3 core indicators that were mentioned. We have proficiency, student growth, and graduation rate. So these are going to establish the school's core performance level. To receive exemplary, a school must have exemplary proficiency or growth together with strong graduation performance. When a school does not meet the exemplary combination, its performance is generally based on the strongest of the 3 core indicators. So if any core indicator is comprehensive, the core performance is set 1 level below the strongest core indicator. In addition, if you have a core indicator that falls into the automatic comprehensive range, the final designation is comprehensive. So just to summarize this slide, the core indicators really establish the starting point, and then the elevating indicators will raise the designation, but they cannot lower it. So as I mentioned with the elevating indicators, they have the ability to raise that designation. Those elevating indicators are EL progress to proficiency, consistent attendance, and the results of the climate survey. So we're gonna move on. So this is, this is the last slide, but with respect to these indicators, a lot of the areas that are being measured, they do directly connect to the areas that we are specifically focusing on. With MTSS, we are specifically targeting attendance. We are targeting our support for multilingual learners, and looking at our school climate, trying to address all of those areas which are identified through our strategic plan.
Is this D94 information available current? format, or is that what we're waiting for in October? Okay, so we'll get a presentation in October, and we'll kind of have an idea of what's going on.
Yeah, and this is the new metrics, so that it'll look a little different, and so we'll,
Yeah, our December data presentation will be aligned with the new accountability model. But for a frame of reference, using the new model, if we took our numbers and plugged them in, we'd still be in that commendable range.
Yes, yeah, in terms of that commendable, is there, like, right now, do we know what areas that we need to work on in order to get us above commendable or approaching, like, which pieces are kind of bringing the score down?
As it lays right now, all of them are within that commendable band. So all of those indicators, we would need to work on to be exemplary.
Okay. Okay. And so if I understand correctly, the old model ranked schools against each other, whereas the new model is we're getting scored on our own performance based on some formulas that they've put together.
correct. And we'll be able to see the scores by each of these different groups. And so we'll be able to say like, okay, we've got to target EL progress or consistent attendance because it will be reported out using those different indicators.
And that'll be ready for us in October, at least from ISB, right? Okay.
And the data is always retroactive, so then we're looking at data from last school year that'll be reported this October.
Okay.
Do you have any idea how the changes and cuts and basic decimation of support from the Department of Ed could impact all of these things that we're supposed to be doing? Because some of the core groups that we most need to focus on are the ones that are affected from everything the Department of Ed is doing currently, and kind of a concern.
In terms of financial impact, I know Dan is going to talk about this in his tentative budget presentation. We have seen a decrease in Title I, II, and III funding, so that hits on your point, Kathy.
Everything going on right now.
What's the intended audience for this report?
It's the general public.
It's way too complicated for
I
the,
don't
for
disagree.
the public.
We sat through many of sessions with ISB to help explain it to us, and it is very complicated. So we're going to try to, when we give our December data presentation, present it in more user-friendly language. But yeah, it's not very easy to digest on the first look.
I went through it a couple times, and I have a problem with the description of comprehensive, because normally I assume comprehensive is one of the higher categories. I couldn't figure out why we're calling it comprehensive and then we're calling it low. I don't know, the people in ISB dictionary or something. I had a hard time wrapping my head around the whole concept when I kept coming to comprehensive as the lowest rung.
It's like an oxymoron, almost like comprehensive issues. Like you have a problem in all of these areas. Like it's the opposite, like in my mind, it's the opposite of what you'd imagine it meant.
I just have one comment. I was part of a presentation on the survey, 5 Essentials, the name escaping for a second, the 5 Essentials survey and the data behind it, specifically when it comes to parent engagement and connectedness to the school building and to the school culture, and also how the parents feel engaged or connected to the school district and how they're being serviced. So I definitely would love to hear if and when we do make the shift to Panorama, to see if it captures the data in that same way, because it's a really valuable the way that 5 Essentials captures that information.
The problem with 5 Essentials, and every district experiences this, when we look for parent participation, you're getting 2, 3, 4, 5% at the high school level. Middle school level, their parents are much more involved and more apt to take the survey. The other issue with the 5 Essentials is that it's not very user-friendly. You've got to log in, and it's hard to do it from your phone. So we're hoping that Panorama will make it a little bit more user-friendly in language that's easier to understand and more accessible on the phone, which it seems like 75 to 80% of the people are using their phone to do everything now. So hopefully that'll alleviate some of that. We can get actual actionable data back from a larger category of our families, as opposed to 5%, because that's historically where we've been. I think we were up to 10 or 12% at one point, which was a high for us, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, I know that typically we run into the same issue. I just feel like, again, it is valuable because, again, it captures data in a way that's relevant and important to, again, those things that you mentioned that I think we really need to understand, the sense of belonging, the connectedness, how students feel engaged, how they feel welcomed, how parents, all of those things. So I really hope that Panorama can capture the data and we can disaggregate it in that way as well.
Panorama does have a parent portion also, so one would think overall it would be expanding it, making it friendly, easy to use on a phone, and also including our support.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for that very enlightening presentation. Executive Director of Specialized Services report.
All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to let me share more about special education in District 94. As always, I appreciate the board's commitment to understanding the work that we do to support all of our students and families. Special education is an area that I'm deeply passionate about because at its core, it's really just about ensuring every student has access to the supports, the opportunities, and experiences they need to be successful. So I always appreciate getting in front of you guys and telling you all the good work that we're doing. So today, I want to keep it nice and simple and not like the data that we just saw that can be very confusing. I hope to just provide a brief overview of what special education is, the different disability categories that determine eligibility services, and then a snapshot of our current special education population in District 94. So hopefully it'll be clear and everyone understands it, and if not, I'm here and happy to answer any questions. So at the core, special ed is brought down by the IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, but to simplify the language, it's one of the most important things to understand about special education is that it's not a place, it's not a separate program, it's a service designed to meet individual student needs. Special education provides specially designed instruction, or what we call SDI, and supports that allows students with disabilities to access, participate in, and make progress within the same educational opportunities as their peers. To sum this up, you don't have to read it all, but at its core, again, special ed is about providing those individualized support so students with disabilities can access learning and make meaningful progress. Federal law requires schools to provide a free, appropriate public education, or FAPE, in the least restrictive environment, LRE, which means we always consider how we can support our students as close to the general education setting as appropriate. The foundation of special education is that IEP, the Individualized Education Program or Plan, which brings together families, educators, and specialists to identify student needs, establish goals, and determine the supports necessary for their success. Those supports can look different for every student. It can be specialized accommodations in a general education classroom. It can be a co-taught classroom with a special ed teacher and a general education teacher, or it could be more specialized settings. Special education is not one location or one program. It's a continuum designed around the individual needs of the student. So I put together this continuum of services of what we offer in District 94, and it shows the full range of the service options. So it's organized along a continuum from least restrictive to most restrictive, meaning most students receive services in general education settings, with a smaller number needing more intensive or specialized support depending on their needs. It can vary. We want most kids, again, on the left side, and then of course we're going to have students that need that more specialized programming in those therapeutic day schools, residential placements, and if at all possible, we want to avoid the home hospital placement because it is the most restrictive, but we understand if that's what the student needs, that is what the student needs. The eligibility categories, I won't quiz you on it, I won't make you read everything, but some of the things that I want you to understand is that there are 13 disability categories that are handed down to us. We don't decide what they are, unfortunately, but the biggest misunderstanding, I think, in special education is that it's based on educational impact. It's not based on a medical diagnosis. Under the federal law, students must meet the criteria for one of the 13 disability categories, and that disability must significantly affect their ability to access or make progress in the educational setting. So our role is to identify those needs and provide those individualized supports that help each student succeed. Here's the long, exhaustive list of 13 disability categories. It highlights everything, the whole range, but what I want to make sure you guys understand is that our students have a wide variety of strengths and needs. Some students require support with reading or math, others with communication, behavior, health, or physical access to learning. Regardless of the eligibility category, our goal will always be the same: to provide individualized supports that allow every student to access their education, make meaningful progress, and prepare for life after high school. So now is my favorite part, where I get to talk about our students. And I hate saying by the numbers, because I want everyone to remember that each one of these numbers is someone's student, is someone's whole world, as I like to tell my staff, that's in front of them every day. But just to give a snapshot of our numbers, approximately we're serving 1,912 students as of July 31st, our total population. Of that, 13.8% are receiving special education services. These 4 categories represent the majority of our students who receive special education services in our district, and they help guide our staffing, programming, and professional learning priorities for us as well. This can be a little confusing, so I hope that I make it clear. So the dark blue on the left is our numbers, our D94 numbers, and then the averages are the state targets. So each year we report to the state the percentage of time students with IEPs spend in general education classrooms compared to more specialized special education settings. The ISB people, I should say, designate those categories at the bottom. It's what it's on our IEP paperwork. And so it can be confusing when you read inside general education classroom 80% or more of the day, but that's the biggest indicator that ISB really does look at. So currently, with that being said, 45% of our students with IEPs do spend 80% or more of their day in general education settings. While this is below the state's target of 53%, we have made steady progress each year over the past 5 years to increase that number, decreasing our other more specialized programming. You'll see on this next slide that since 2020, we were at 39% and then kept dropping. And then last year, we shot back up to 34.7. And this year, we're projecting to be around 45% of our students being in the general education classroom for 80% or more of their day.
I got a question on the
Yeah.
last slide.
Yeah.
Why was there no state target on the second category?
So that's EE Code 2, and they don't necessarily care about EE Code 2. They don't give a state average for that because it can look different in different districts. They really look at the other 4 codes there. EE2 can be a mix of students who are both in a general education classroom and maybe in 1 or 2 special ed classroom settings. But for whatever reason, ISB does not give a designation for that environmental code. Good question, though. So I think the reason why we're seeing such a positive change, there are several key initiatives that I think are driving this growth. And that includes, we've really targeted professional learning focused on delivering specially designed instruction, or SDI, in the general education setting with both our general education teachers and our special education teachers. We've expanded the number of co-taught sections, which does count as a general education setting, and then thoughtfully reduced those self-contained sections where it was appropriate. And we've also strengthened our collaboration with our middle schools to ensure that students transition to us successfully into more inclusive learning environments, with ongoing conversations of what our services look like compared to theirs, and making that best decision for that student as well. This is an exciting year. I don't know if maybe exciting is not as what it should be or could be, but it's exciting for us, maybe not for you guys. But we have 2 big things happening in the special education world in District 94 this year. The first is a comprehensive needs assessment that's going to be conducted by an external consultant. The process will provide recommendations for professional learning, identify opportunities to increase access to less restrictive educational settings, and offer guidance on implementing those changes in a thoughtful, effective, and fiscally responsible manner, with a particular view of how can we duly serve are duly identified in the best way possible at the high school setting. And then in addition, our district will be participating in the state's cyclical monitoring review. This required self-assessment evaluates our special education policies, procedures, and practices to ensure compliance with state and federal regulations. Every school district has to participate in this review on a rotating basis as part of the state's oversight process. So we'll begin that this fall, and we hope to get results from both of these in the springtime to report back to you guys as well. An exciting opportunity that we've been working on with our middle school districts is creating a special education parent advisory committee. We recognize that our group of parents probably need more specialized parenting on different topics, and we want to provide that for all of our students, regardless of where they're coming from, and them ending up being with us in our programming. So we're aiming for meeting 4 times this year as a way to introduce resources, connections, and parent education, and we've identified these 4 topics through a variety of surveys and anecdotal data from the middle schools of common themes that they're seeing as well. So IEP 101, just trying not to overwhelm parents with what that large document is, but really having them understand what an important team player they are with us in supporting their students. We've also had a large number of parents asking for behavior supports, what to do at home or when they're out in the community with their students as well. We have been hosting a community services fair the last 3 years, and now we want to encourage all families to attend it. It has many agencies for post-secondary, after transition programming, but also college and post-secondary trade vocational programs as well for our students. And then, of course, the executive functioning is always a hot topic of how can we better inform our parents of how that can be done at home as well, to generalize those skills that we're teaching here to them at home. So I hope that wasn't overwhelming. Thank you so much I know there's a lot of legal jargon and there's all the acronyms and there's so many complexities to it, but I really do appreciate you guys always supporting us and really recognizing the work that the staff do here for our students. So thank you.
A couple questions.
Yeah.
Starting. I know you talked about some of the things that are helping our numbers improve as far as getting students into the regular classroom. Do you think that increased early intervention programs and accessibility to those, along with early childhood programs and all-day kindergarten, have helped improve that? And
that could be that's an interesting statistic.
That's about the time
that it all started.
We would start seeing, we should be seeing that age group coming in where so much more funding has been available.
Very true. That could definitely be one of the indicators or helpers.
The other question I have is, and this is specific, do we have someone on staff now who is non-English speaking to help support parents who are, I think, when my own child was here, one of the biggest issues for so many of the Spanish-speaking families, and it was a huge concern of mine, was that there was no one full-time who could give them those resources and that knowledge.
Exactly. And we are very lucky with Elva Slepika is our translator, and she is amazing. And she comes to all of our parent events as well as parent-teacher conferences, and that is exactly what her role is to make sure that our parents are connected. And we've often found that they will give more information to her, and that is she's an asset to our department. So, she's full-time.
That makes me really, really happy to hear.
We're very lucky with her.
Always worried that so many of those families
absolutely.
And so many of those students were falling through the cracks once they transitioned out.
Yep. A lot of our adult agencies that come to the community services fair also have translators on staff, which has been we've seen a tremendous growth with parents understanding some of the legal things that go on after their students turn 18 or some of the eligibility programs they can have. So we've been partnering with them to ensure that they know who our community is, and they do have, most of them have translators on staff too.
How are we encouraging all of those students to vote when they are going into transition because they are all eligible.
That is true. That is a
with
benefit, yeah.
The world as it is now, we need all those votes and those families.
Yeah. Yep, it is their right to do.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
The numbers we saw, percentages of students in general ed, is that high school only, or is that?
High school, well, so the ISB State Report Card takes the average of all the schools. So one thing I was gonna say is because we are high school only, I do wonder if that does affect our ability to meet that state average. We'll be on a phone call with ISB for a number of other things, and that is something that I actually did write down to ask is there any consideration for high school only districts or elementary districts, and what would that difference be? Because I had the same question.
And I guess when you're asking that, ask if all the schools count the same
Yeah.
way.
Yep.
So I guess that brings up, what's considered a gen ed
Yeah.
classroom?
Great question. So let me put this back up. So, sorry, don't get dizzy. So general education classroom is when there's a general education teacher delivering the content. So it could be a gen ed classroom where it's the 28 students in that classroom and a student with an IEP happens to be in there. Or in our service delivery model currently, co-taught also counts as general education classroom. Yes, we designate minutes in that co-taught setting, but it's still counted. There's a gen ed teacher delivering general education content, so it still counts as a gen ed setting, which is why our numbers are going up, because we've increased that setting for our students. So as long as there's a gen ed teacher.
So den, phys ed,
Yep.
driver's ed, those
Yep.
are all
Yep.
considered
All the
gen ed
electives,
classroom.
yeah, yep.
Okay. Also, there was a slide that said that the IEPs, students and parents and teachers, are there situations where there's an IEP meeting and parents are not involved? How do students get that service?
No, so if anything, our staff is really dedicated into doing the work before the meeting, so parents know exactly what they're walking into, and part of that is contacting them. Legally, we have to do it 3 times. We do it well over 3 times to make sure the parent knows, so they can phone in. We've gone to a student's doorstep if we needed to have the parent involved in the meeting. We will not hold one without a parent. That is, it's not something that we believe in, nor does the law believe in that either. So the parent has to be there and has to be a participant in that IEP team meeting. And so we make every effort.
I guess what I'm thinking is if there's a student with a clear disability into the district at the high school level.
Maybe.
In the primary and elementary and middle school level, is the parent truly doesn't know how to support or partner with the staff once their kiddo has come home.
Yep.
So I think that's going to be a really important topic. I know NAMI offers a support group,
Yes.
and we've tried to get parents over there, but they don't offer anything with bilingual support.
Really?
Yeah. And
That's
typically
interesting.
it's down in Lombard, so a lot of our parents that don't have transportation.
Can't go there.
So I'm really excited to
Good.
hear. And then I'm assuming you're providing interpretation.
Yes, and childcare too. We're gonna work with our clubs and activities so they can watch some kids if they need to.
Wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Any other
Would be a
questions?
good presentation to put online as part of our parent university. For even the parents that don't necessarily have children with disabilities, at least they understand what's going on. A lot of parents think, well, you're spending all this time and attention on
Correct.
other kids and not ours. I think it's good for them to know that, we are an inclusive district.
Yeah, very much so. Thank you.
Thank you for a very educational presentation.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right, that brings us to the world of high finance. Fiscal year 2027 tentative budget presentation.
High finance? All right, the learning continues. More information. Pass it on. Mold. Okay, so I wanted to start with a quick executive summary before we get into the details. At a glance, the FY27 budget presented is a balanced operating budget before capital transfers. We anticipate $49 million in operating revenues with $48.1 million in expenditures, leaving a surplus of around $900,000. We have $4.7 million in planned capital investments, which include the board-approved solar project with no planned borrowing for these projects. And then lastly, the budget continues to have strong ending operating fund balances, and the rest of the presentation will support the bullet points as you see on the slide here. So a school budget represents the financial, operational, and most importantly, instructional goals of the school board and the district leadership. During the budgeting process, every effort was made to identify as many known revenues and expenditures as possible. And as a reminder, the school budget represents only a plan, and the actual revenues and expenditures may be different than the budget. Here's a timetable that will follow for this presentation, review and submission of the fiscal year 2027 budget. As we know, I'm presenting the tentative budget tonight. The tentative budget will then be placed on public display on Monday, August 10th. We'll have opportunities for questions at the August board meeting and the September committee of the whole meetings. And then a public hearing will be held at the September board meeting adopting the fiscal year 2027 budget. And then once adopted, administration will submit to the ISB and the county clerk by September 30th as required by law. So the annual budget is 8 separate budgets for each of the listed funds and is prepared with the goal to ensure each fund is balanced and funds used appropriately. Here's a snapshot of all the funds. Due to capital projects, we expect to have a deficit over all funds. The operations and maintenance fund balance will be used for next year's anticipated capital improvements, which will be transferred to the capital projects fund to better account for these projects. Additionally, we plan to transfer $1.6 million of fund balance from the education fund and the operations and maintenance fund for the approved solar project. This budget continues our philosophy of making planned investments in district infrastructure while maintaining strong operating reserves. We are investing in facilities and equipment before they become emergencies while avoiding additional debt. The anticipated ending fund balance provides 7 months of operating expenditures in reserve. We're going to take a closer look at the operating funds. So these are the 5 operating that we consider to be operating funds. The anticipated transfers, again, will come from reserves in education, operation, and maintenance funds for those planned investments in capital projects in the solar project. Once we receive the rebate for the solar project, those funds will go directly back into the education fund. Both the IMRF and TORP funds do have planned deficits in an effort to reduce their respective fund balances. Again, those fund balances provide 7 months of operating expenditures in reserve. So there are several sources and types of revenues which we receive on an annual basis. Our revenues come from various sources like the tax levy process, investing a fund balance, and from grants submitted to ISB. Revenues will drive the school budget. As such, the budgeting process begins with the revenue. Once the revenue budget is set, then we can take a closer look at how we can appropriate those funds to meet the needs of our students. With that said, a couple of large pieces of revenue are the corporate property replacement tax and the evidence-based funding, and we are still waiting on finalized numbers for those sources. As always, the final budget presented in September will incorporate updated state revenue estimates and actuals. This graph provides a 4-year look back for those various types of revenues we discussed. As we look at local funding, we see a total increase of 8% from FY23 to FY26, showing a steady yet moderate increase. State funding continues to increase thanks to the evidence-based funding. We actually see an increase of 33% over those years. And then lastly, we have federal funding. We saw a very large increase during COVID, but now has decreased back down to similar levels of 2019. So overall, that's a 34% decrease in federal funding. Now that we reviewed prior years, we're going to take a look at our current year budget. So as we look at the 27 anticipated revenues, as expected, much of the revenue is received from local property taxes, interest earnings, and corporate property personal replacement tax. The local section of the pie chart is comparable to other schools in our area, although most of the collar counties are even more dependent on property taxes when compared to District 94. In total, we anticipate a small increase of 1% in local funding for FY27. The state portion is mainly evidence-based funding, which continues to increase year over year as we are still expected to be Tier 1 for EBF. I am anticipating an increase of about $1.2 million, which is mainly evidence-based funding, which is a $500,000 increase. And then pupil transportation claim I expect to increase as well, but that is only because our expenditures are increasing from the prior year. The federal portion is expected to decrease as funding for the title grants have all been reduced. The federal revenue is normally close to 4% of our overall funding, but that is decreased down to 2.5%. Overall revenues in our operating funds are expected to increase by about $800,000 when compared to last year. This graph represents the property taxes we receive in each of the last five fiscal years, along with the budget amount for FY27. We will see the rest of the 2025 tax levy and the estimated first half of the 2026 tax levy in FY27. This estimate includes a 5% increase to a EAV and the known December 2025 Consumer Price Index of 2.7%, which of course is limited to the 5% and new construction. As a reminder, the tax levy is submitted in December, and then payments received on the tax levy are received the following June through September. As such, and because residents are paying their property taxes between two different fiscal years, and as D94 records revenue on a cash basis of accounting, the actual receipt of property taxes for each year fluctuates. Overall, due to CPI, new construction, and increased EAV, we have seen a steady increase of about 3% each year. Aside from our main source of revenue, which are the property taxes we just discussed, there are several other revenue sources. The main one to point out again is the evidence-based funding, which is under Tier 1 funding. Again, I've estimated that we would receive $10.1 million from EBF, which is an increase of $500,000. I expect to receive the actual amount soon. I keep on checking every day. I'm stalking it. They still have not updated that. The pupil transportation claim is reimbursed based on the prior year expenditures. As we know, our transportation expenditures have increased dramatically the past couple of years. So with that, and because the reimbursement is a year behind, FY27 is the first year that we will see a reimbursement based on those higher expenditures. So even though we expect to see the state of Illinois to continue to prorate the transportation reimbursement, we still expect to see a $600,000 increase in that funding. The other categorical funding include the CTEI grant for our vocational program and then private outplacement reimbursement, which is expected to stay flat. As we look at the federal funding, the IDEA grant is our largest federal grant. In FY26, if you recall, the IDEA grant helped to fund the transition department. With that, this year's grant is expected to be less as we spent much of the carryover from prior years. Other federal grants are expected to decrease a bit. The other sources listed are the corporate personal property replacement tax and interest. As I mentioned, CPPRT is issued by the Illinois Department of Revenue, and they provide an estimate each year. Again, that estimate has not come through. And then with regards to interest, I've made a conservative estimate with the hope that my estimate is low. Now that we've estimated how much revenue that we expect to receive, the next question becomes how those dollars are allocated. So we have 8 different classifications of an expenditure per the Illinois Program Accounting Manual. As the expenditure side of the budget is prepared, the salary and benefits are calculated first, as this is the largest portion of the budget and is mostly in known expenses calculated from the collective bargaining agreements, which takes into account the salary schedules, increases, and lane changes. From there, we have discussions with department heads take place to determine the specific supplies, equipment, and software needs of their students. This graph provides a 4-year look back for those various types of expenditures. As we look at the overall increase in expenditures over the past 4 years, we see an overall increase of 10%, or of 9%. Purchase services and supplies mainly drove this increase as we invested in the buildings and classrooms. With the new teacher contract, we see that shift with the FY27 budget. As we look at the FY27 operating funds, anticipated expenditures, we see that overall expected expenditures increased by 10%, moving from just under $44 million to just over $48 million. This increase was expected for FY27. As we know, educating students is a people-intensive business, so it is no surprise that salaries and benefits are the largest portion of our expenditures at just over 66%. Salaries and benefits is expected to increase by $4 million, which is the entire increase from FY26 to FY27. Again, this was expected for this fiscal year. The purchase services and supply portions are largely made up of our transportation contract, energy contracts, along with software needs, maintenance, and custodial supplies, and those curriculum supplies. The capital outlay section includes much of the technology, equipment, and facility improvements planned. And then lastly, the other section is comprised of mainly special education tuition. These other categories saw little to no increases. So as the budget is compiled, there we go. As the budget is compiled, I try to find as many knowns as possible. With regards to salaries, that means accounting for collective bargaining agreement contracts for teachers and support staff, and salary increases for confidential staff, as well as administrators. As we know, we have a new CBA starting this year with teachers that made a major shift to their salaries as we try to remain competitive in the market. Support staff's contract was ratified in 2025 and is also taken into account for the budget. Confidential salaries were increased by 4%. And lastly, as the board knows, administration contracts were also adjusted for FY27, again, to remain competitive in the market. We had a high salary retiree, and we didn't replace another administrator who left. So the overall increase for administrators as a whole was only 4.6%. With that said, as the board is aware, the specific salaries noted in the limitation of administrative cost cap does show an increase of 19%. We will need to have a public hearing for a waiver of this cap next month. Increases going forward for all administrators will be held to CPI, not to exceed 4.5%. As such, are expected to be under the 5% limitation in future years. And then also, as we know, health benefits also increased dramatically this past year. That anticipated increase is 17%. Each year, I provide the department heads the opportunity to create their budget to account for their anticipated needs for the upcoming school. Because of the modified zero-based budgeting process, the purchase services and supply line accounts for the departments have minimal increases. The caveat to that is the software renewals continue to increase more than any other line item. We continue to have improved services from First Student with our contract increasing by 3%, and then energy costs appear to have minimal increases from the prior year. And lastly, tuition for our outplaced students have stabilized as enrollment has declined at these facilities. We have various planned capital projects for the summer of '27. As recommended in the facility plan, we have one more roof to complete. That will complete all of our roofing projects for the next multiple years. Also in the facility plan, we look to repair the entrance 25 parking lot. And then we still have some remaining expenditures for the auditorium and the roof that was completed this summer. Those projects will be expensed in the capital projects fund. Lastly, we are planning renovations of classrooms for CNA and incubated classes that will start in the next year. And then, of course, as the board knows, we have the solar project of $3.2 million. So as I've noted, we have capital improvement projects we are anticipating to complete. In order to better account for these projects and to better overall understanding of our normal operating expenditures and our operating funds, just like last year, we will be recommending a transfer of $1.5 million from the operations and maintenance fund to the capital projects fund. Also, as we normally do, we will have the transfer of interest from working cash fund to the education fund. So the solar project again, this will be recorded in the capital projects fund. And so we will have a transfer of $1.6 million from the education fund and $1.6 million from the operations and maintenance fund. The 50% rebate for this project, when we receive that, that'll go directly back into the education fund to make that fund whole. So similar to any individual or family, a savings plan is part of any good financial plan. The anticipated ending fund balances at the end of the fiscal year show that we have some flexibilities for future projects and could cover any disruptions in local, state, or federal revenues, which is always a good thing. The percent of expenditure numbers are based on the last 3 years and the average of those expenditures. These fund balances will help us to accomplish various projects along with those unforeseen projects that always seem to come along. In closing, I believe that this tentative budget continues the district's long-standing commitment to responsible financial stewardship. It maintains a balanced operating budget, continues to invest in our facilities and infrastructure without additional borrowing, and preserves healthy operating fund balances for the future. Between now and September, we will update the budget as additional revenue information comes available, but I don't anticipate any significant changes, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
A couple. What's a CNA and incubator class?
So it's the new courses that the board approved 2 months ago. certified nursing assistant, and incubator is an entrepreneurial class in the business department.
Okay, we're not raising chickens.
No, we're not.
And we had a 50% increase in salary. How did we get to that? I know we didn't have that big a adjustment in salaries.
You say a 50%?
And on
I think it was 50% of the overall budget.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Overall.
50%.
50% of the budget, not 50% increase. No.
Correct. 50% of the overall budget. I was like, wow.
I miss it.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for that presentation. That brings us to new business. Policy 2:260, first reading. The recommended motion, the Board of Education review policy 2:260 and share feedback prior to the August 25th, 2026 board meeting. Moved by Kathy, second by Lynn. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Casey Mayer,
Aye.
Mr. Nagle, Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Munoz,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez,
Aye.
Ms. Murphy,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye. Motion carries. Practice pre-ACT administration. The recommended motion, the Board of Education review the proposal and share feedback prior to the August 25th, 2026 board meeting. Moved Lynn.
Second.
Who did the second? Second Tammy. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Nagle,
Aye.
Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Munoz, Ms. Chavez, Ms. Murphy,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer.
Aye.
Motion carries. Northern Illinois University MOU clinical experience. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding between District 94 and Northern Illinois University as presented.
So moved.
Motion Kathy,
Second.
second Lynn. Any discussion?
How many MOUs do we have with teaching universities similar to this?
So this would be NIU, well, the last MOU we signed with NIU was in '97. We've got Elmhurst. We have, I'm going off the top of my head here, Rich. I'll get you an exact number.
That's fine, I'm just
Yeah,
curious how
Aurora.
many.
Those are the three that stand out right now. We have Wheaton as well.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Munoz,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez, Ms. Murphy,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer,
Aye.
Mr. Nagel.
Aye.
Motion carries. Software renewals. The recommended motion, the Board of Education approve the renewal of the contracts for 2026 to 2027 as presented. Motion.
Second.
Second Kathy. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Munoz,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez,
Aye.
Ms. Murphy,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer,
Aye.
Mr. Nagel,
Aye.
Mr. Ramos.
Aye.
Motion carries. SOPPA agreement approval. Recommended motion, the Board of Education approve under new business the proposed SOPPA compliance measures, including the standard student data privacy agreements as noted.
So moved.
Second.
Motion. Yeah. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Chavez,
Aye.
Ms. Murphy,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer,
Aye.
Mr. Nagel,
Aye.
Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
Motion carries. Disposal of assets. The recommended motion that the Board of Education approve the disposal, donation, or recycling of broken or obsolete furniture/equipment as provided in the agenda.
So moved.
Motion, Lynn.
Second.
Second, who's the second on that one?
Both Tammy and I did.
Oh, give it to Penny
Either
this
one.
time. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Murphy,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer,
Aye.
Mr. Nagel,
Aye.
Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Munoz,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez.
Aye.
Motion carries. Donations over $500. The recommended motion, the Board of Education accept the donations as presented.
So moved.
Motion, Lynn.
Second.
Second, Kathy. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer,
Aye.
Mr. Nagle,
Aye.
Mr. Ramus,
Aye.
Ms. Munoz, Ms. Chavez,
Aye.
Ms. Murphy.
Aye.
Motion carries. And finally, personnel report. The recommended motion, the Board of Education approve the personnel report as presented.
So moved.
Motion Kathy, second Catalina. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Casey Mayer,
Aye.
Mr. Nagle,
Aye.
Mr. Ramus,
Aye.
Ms. Munoz,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez,
Aye.
Ms. Murphy,
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye, motion carries. And there being no further business to come before the board, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion Kathy,
Second.
second Tammy. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are done. Thank you for a great meeting and very informative presentations.